by 6. You know, you need to grab a drink or go to washroom, please help yourself. There's a recording after this, so you won't miss out anything. Okay, so now I'll first share my screen. Okay, so this is saving to YouTube directly. So let me mute here. Okay, so then I'll share this link. So this is what we'll cover today. Okay. Okay, so here. Mute. Okay. So in the next close to 2 hours, we'll cover on different phases of TagUI, how to get started, basically the resources. Then I'll walk you guys through the usage guide so that when you approach it for the first time, right, you don't need to waste too much time to dig into various sections and try to understand what this section is about. Then I'll go through about 20 minutes on some requested scenarios. So these are scenarios from Kwan Seng and another user. So we spend some time on that, and there are example, TagUI script that you can use to test it right away. Yeah, and today's webinar, right, is not a hands-on webinar, because if it's hands-on, right, we won't be able to cover so much in 2 hours. It's more of showing you guys how to do certain things, and with this reference material after the webinar, you can try it out on your own, and if you have questions, you can just ping me and then feedback. So then these are some of the use cases requested, so I will go through those. So hopefully we can complete all those within an hour. Then we leave behind the remaining hour to go through any question and answers, as well as scenarios that you guys would like to go through. Okay. Yeah, I think that's more important rather than I share on some pre-planned scenarios, right? But that may not be 100% relevant. Yeah. Okay. So what's TagUI? It's a free and open source RPA tool by AI Singapore, and for some of you who, let's say you heard of AI Singapore for the first time, then you will be a government-sponsored organization that try to accelerate AI in Singapore, and we do it in various initiatives, from deep research in AI to matching research grants to certain researchers to do certain problems in AI. We have in another initiative that do deep research on, let's say, how to use AI to solve diabetics and prevent diabetes condition and improve the health of Singaporeans. Then we also have one that is dealing with industry. So John, Ruth, myself, we belong to that branch. So that branch work more and closer with industry and companies, and we do also trainings to try to increase the AI capability of Singaporeans. Yeah, then RPA is just one part of what AI Singapore does. Okay, so TagUI is a free and open source RPA tool. We have a bustling user community. We have around 3,000 downloads every month. Because this tool is you download, right? You don't have to download again to use it. That means all these are essentially new users. So in the last couple of years, we have about 60,000-70,000 downloads. So if you discount like some download, then some will drop off, right? You will have probably at least 1,000 plus new users every month. So the user base is quite big in the sense. Then there are many external community champions that has totally no relations with AI Singapore, but there are people that through the course of this project I got to know, and they will just create different versions of TagUI for the community that they are passionate about. For example, for myself, I created a Python version of TagUI, and somebody I know in Denmark created a C# version of TagUI. And somebody in India created a TagUI that is designed for Robocop to use, and there's somebody in Dubai now that's working on a Go version of TagUI. So essentially, whichever flavor of TagUI you use, right, you'll be able to find one that has the flattest learning curve for you. If you are a business, domain expert with a little technical background, then things like the Microsoft version and flavor, you'll enjoy it more. If you are somebody familiar with VS Code IDE, then you probably enjoy using TagUI indeed, And if you're somebody who's prefer to work a lot with data science and Python, then probably you'll find yourself at home with TagUI in the Python flavor. Yeah. So let me run through these different flavors that we have. So the first one is in English. So if you go to the homepage, you have all this background info, some user testimonials, there was some background about the tool. Yeah, and this is like a screenshot of the Microsoft Word version, which I just mentioned. So it means, right, like you use IDE. IDE means an integrated development environment. You can create programs, you can create robots, you can create different things. Like if you're familiar with UiPath, your IDE will be the UiPath Studio app. And in Microsoft Word, you can actually use it as an IDE for RPA. Yeah, you do your robot and then you run and deploy, and you set up your configuration. Yeah. Feel free to stop me anytime if you have questions. Okay. Yeah. So this is the human language version, and there's also a section on enterprise security. There's a credits of some of the community contributors, like those that created the other versions of TagUI. And of course, ultimately, AI Singapore is sponsored by National Research Foundation. Yeah, it's a unit under the Prime Minister Office. So, yeah, ultimately, we are funded by taxpayers. Yeah, so, okay. Then we have the TagUI in other languages. So, what are the other languages? Things like French, German, Hindi, Malay, Polish, Serbian. All these languages can be done in TagUI. What I mean by different languages, right? It means that, you see, you can write your instructions to tell the robot what to do in English, right? But you can also write in Serbian, you can also write in French, all these instructions. So that was what I mean by different languages, okay? And right now it support 23. Yeah, but in the future, maybe there'll be more depending on user needs. Right? Then there's a version of TagUI for Word and Excel. So Ruth has been spending the last few months working on these two apps, along with other things. Now she's switching gear to doing these video courses for TagUI, because this tool is more or less done already. So version 3 of Word has been out. As you can see, it's quite a complete IDE. And Excel, the version 3 will be out probably this weekend. She has wrap it up and I'll do some final testing, then we'll release it. Yeah, so with Word and Excel, it means that just by opening Microsoft Word and Excel, right, you can do your RPA robot development. You can configure your RPA data for your robot. You can configure your RPA parameters for your robot. And then you can run and deploy RPA directly from Microsoft Word and Microsoft Excel. You don't even need to go to your file explorer. You don't even need to go to your command prompt to do anything else. Yeah, all this configuration and running and deployment can be done within Microsoft Office. Okay. The only caveat for this, right, is it only works for Microsoft Office for Windows. For the Mac OS version, it has Microsoft Office has a limitation which doesn't allow us to do what is done here. All these advanced features is not doable there on Microsoft Office on Mac OS. So just a note for that. Okay, then there's also VS Code. You know, if you're a VS Code user, then very easy. You just 3 steps to install it. Okay, you just need to you know, go to a VS Studio to search for the extensions, you know, search for TagUI and you can install it. Then you have the things like syntax highlighting and you know, autocomplete, IntelliSense and so on. Okay. And there's also a TagUI version for Node-RED. So Node-RED is like a workflow orchestration tool where it's pretty event driven and it has like 3,000 over connectors to different apps. So you have a graphical user interface where you drag and drop different tools, different sensors, different inputs, you know, and then chain them up into different outputs. So this is a TagUI version that is created by a guy in Denmark, yeah, for the Node-RED platform. If you guys do IoT, right, you'll be very familiar with Node-RED. IoT is the Internet of Things, the different small devices connecting and talking to each other. Then there's also a cloud version. Cloud version means, you know, with this example notebook, you can create your TagUI robot and run it on the cloud. You can even run it on the phone. Yeah, as long as you have a Google account, you can do this already. Yeah, and you know, as for the robot, you can either upload the file to this server to run, or you can give it an online URL to run. Yeah, TagUI can run robots hosted online directly without any special configuration. Okay, in this case, I host it on GitHub. It's just a raw text file. You see, if I copy out, you know, it's just a text file of the robot. Yeah, so TagUI can be run this way. The only downside of using this is because this is a free cloud server by Google. So whatever you do here, you know, after you finish using, the next day you got to, it doesn't store data for you. So you got to click, you got to click play again to reset up the TagUI program and so on. Yeah, but it's a free cloud server, so no complaints. Some users use it to do data scraping, and then after running for a few hours, they just download the output using some of the example here. Yeah. Maybe it's an Excel spreadsheet, maybe it's a CSV file, maybe it's a zip file. So there are many ways to collect back the output. So this is on the cloud. Docker, yeah, if you guys are familiar with Docker, you know what this is. Basically, it's an image where you can have a Docker, then you install the image, then you have a running instance of TagUI directly already. This is of course based on Linux because Windows there's a license fee. So if you want a Linux image, you can grab this. This one is done also by the guy in Denmark. He's quite a IT expert, so he's very good at all these things. And TagUI can also be orchestrated in other open source RPA tools like OpenRPA, OpenFlow, OpenBots, and Robocop. Orchestration means that like you schedule something and then you monitor the outcome and the status, right? This is a bit different from you schedule it in your task manager. Yeah, if you use your Windows, let's say task scheduler, for example, you schedule, you know, you can't really monitor it or have a dashboard. Yeah, but if you use these tools, you can have a dashboard and some form of reporting. Okay, then TagUI in programming languages, there's a Python version. That I did in my personal time and maintain my personal time. There's a C# version. There's also somebody in Dubai working on the Go version, Suhail Ahmed. Yeah. Okay, how to get started, right? All these are references which will be very useful for anyone getting started on TagUI. Of course, first you guys have to decide, hey, which flavor you want to use. I think most people will either pick the English version or the Python version. Yeah. So if you're a Python programmer, chances are you will find it very easy to learn this Python version. You know, the syntax, everything is the same as TagUI, just that it's Python syntax lah. You know, you have your function call and all this, and the API is very straightforward as well. You know, not a lot of steps. Yeah. So that's for the Python version. But if you are not familiar with Python, then normally you just go straight for the TagUI in the human language version. That's definitely easier to learn and easier to use, because you don't have to understand Python and programming to use it. Yeah. Then there's also a Docker image of this Python version. There's also a cloud version of this Python version, also on Google Colab. Okay. So next would be useful references. There's a slide deck. This is useful if you need to convince your supervisor or your boss next time to say, hey, I want to use this RPA tool. You know, then they will say, hey, we need to go through IT to approve it. Then you just show the slide deck to your boss. Then they will understand what the tool is about, what the security consideration, whatever already. Yeah. This is a good for a quick overview. Then this is the intro webinar, which I asked Kwan Sing to share with you guys first. Otherwise, if you come straight for today's session, right, you'll feel very lost because you don't have the background. The usage guide would be the main documentation. Simple examples, you know, advanced examples. Let me just open quickly. So simple example with let's say, you know, less than 10 lines of example or doing simple stuff, you know. Like maybe this one, Chinese. You know, do a Yahoo search in Chinese. It's a simple example. Then the advanced example, you have more like end-to-end automation. This one is go to DBS homepage to search for Forex rates and then send an email using Gmail. This one is some automation on IRAS. This one is automation on updating Microsoft Word. You know, sometimes you want to mass print many documents with different names and addresses. You can automate that as well using TagUI. Order groceries, yeah, because Prima doesn't have an option to repeat order. You got to re-add everything, so you can automate. This is my wife's use case. She has a spreadsheet to run every week to automate placing the order. There was some report automation, mass account registration, you know, in automating some of your processes on the software you use at work. Like this is Zero for cloud accounting. Yeah, so all these are the advanced use cases. Yeah, community channels. So there are three. First would be the AI Singapore. We have it's like, I don't even know how to call it. It's like a hybrid between Facebook, Reddit, and there's the other social network. I forgot. Yeah. So it's like a hybrid. It's like having all the different features of different social networks. So if you come to this community page, right, you have certain resources and you also have a workflow showcase of users. Yeah, this guy Lawrence is from MOE. You know, he automates all the processes around the student learning space. Yeah, this guy from India, he created automation where from chatbot you can control TagUI to use TagUI to do forex rate conversion, and he did an interesting demo where he used voice to control what to do on the website to do the RPA challenge. Yeah, so he basically say, type name as Niviet, then in the back end TagUI, he's using a Python version. We'll go and fill up all the fields. And here are a list of some other public projects on the Python version, right? And the good thing about this portal is that you see you can have different topics listed, and you can subscribe to everything or just a particular topic. So let's say you want to follow news on TagUI, then you just click here and subscribe to this thread. Yeah, so you won't miss any updates because all these will be email updates. Then you know what's the latest things. And you can also create your own groups to post questions, or you can use the one that's already created there. Yeah, so this is very very organized. It's very different from Telegram and Zoom. Yeah. So that's one channel. Another one would be Zoom. We have a Zoom weekly Q&A. It's almost always every Thursday at 4 to 5 p.m. That's also the same time zone as China, Hong Kong, and Malaysia. Yeah. But today's special. Today we do a webinar, but usually we have 4 to 5, we have just a Q&A. Then we have a Telegram group chat. This Q&A is for existing users and potential users to ask any questions, right? Yeah, and Zoom has an added benefit that I can actually control user computer to troubleshoot something. So this is something very hard to do if we just use a Telegram or email, or even the GitHub issues. You can't actually do that type of deep troubleshooting, but Zoom you can. Yeah, in some cases we need to do that. Yeah, like for example, a couple of months ago, a guy in India, his TagUI suddenly stopped working. Then after digging, we realized that his company IT policy has changed that doesn't allow Chrome to be automated anymore. So he just raised a request to his IT team to have an exception for that. So TagUI can still automate Chrome. Yeah. So this is things that we can't actually easily find without actually meeting up in person and take a look at the user's laptop. And the Telegram group chat is a very good resource where let me show you how the group chat looks like. Okay. So yeah, so this group chat is where people from all over the world post questions, and they get their answers fairly quickly. Yeah, because not just our answer, but other users from different parts of the world, they also will share their experience at this Telegram group chat. Okay. Yeah, so that's for resources. Now I'll walk through the user guide before we go through some of the requested scenarios. Okay, so let's see. This one no need. Okay, so at the home page, you see some examples. Then you have the installation page. Now there's a installer for Windows that when you download, you take care of step 1 to step 5. But you can still choose to do it manually. It's not too difficult if you want to understand what goes behind the scene. Otherwise, you can straight away use the installer. Then there's a Microsoft Word plugin installer where you can install the Microsoft IDE for Word. That's done by Roof. Yeah, you can use that to do TagUI scripts or robots and deploy them. Okay, so all these are the instructions for Windows, and all these are the instructions for Mac and Linux. And for both, you will need to have Java enabled. So you can install OpenJDK here, or for Java, JDK for Mac OS, you can install here. Linux, you can install here. Yeah. This OpenJDK, why we need Java is because underneath the hood, TagUI uses this tool called Schooly X. It's started in late 2009, I think, at MIT. So it was started at the Human Computer Interaction Lab at MIT. Then after a few years, the researchers that worked on that project handed over that project to this guy in Germany called Reimann. And he continued maintaining this project ever since then. And he renamed it from Schooly to Schooly X. Yeah. So Schooly X make use of Java to do a lot of low-level stuff. For example, doing keyboard shortcuts, controlling your mouse, controlling your keyboard, and stuff like that. So, because of that, we need to install OpenJDK. Otherwise, all your computer vision, your OCR, and all your low-level keyboard control and the mouse control, right, is not doable. Yeah. So this one mostly for desktop apps. Yeah. Okay. Now, main concept is where when you zoom in, right, you see what the things that you use most often, like visiting a web page, double clicking stuff, and typing things onto a web page. You can run TagUI, from a text file or from a URL that's hosted online. You can also run TagUI in the headless mode. So what I mean by headless mode is when you run automation, usually you see your Chrome browser. But when you run with the headless option, the web browser doesn't show up at all. Yeah, you don't even see the Chrome icon opening. It's just a background process. But yes, it's possible to automate that way. So here are some of the common steps like click, and so maybe I can zoom into click. In TagUI, you can automate something in broadly speaking, 3 ways. First, you use XPath or web attributes. Yeah, XPath will be something like this. Attributes will be something like this. So if something on the web page has a text value of this, right? When you say click getting started, you will actually click on it. Yeah. Otherwise, if you want to be very specific, you can use XPath. And not to worry if this thing's too complicated. You can use tools like Selectors Hub, where you right click and then you can get the XPath ready. Yeah. Then you can use things like click with XY coordinate. Then you can do things like click with computer vision. For example, let's say I want to click on this PC icon, right, on the Mac. I take a screenshot of it. I can call it like PC. Then in TagUI, I just say click PC.png. Then you click on here. Yeah. So like that. Same for website. So instead of doing all this, I can say click on the Google search button. Then you create a snapshot of the Google search button, then click on it. So broadly speaking, 3 ways to automate something. You have the type step, all these are very English human language looking, type step, and then you have your element, your UI element that you want to type on. It can be a desktop app, it can be a web application, it can even be your command prompt. You can automate typing into the command prompt. That's also doable. Okay. Then some of the variable assignment. Yeah. What else? Live mode. Live mode is very useful. So if you type TagUI live, you will start a mode where you can run line by line what you want to do, and you can try out different things. So that's very useful. Later in the demo, I will be using that a lot. Okay. You can also use a live step within a TagUI script, so that at that point, right, you'll stop running and then you'll prompt you to enter things line by line to test out different things. Then when you're done, you just type done and then you'll continue. There are things like if condition, and all these things like if condition and for loops you can write in JavaScript, but you can also write in human language syntax, something like this. You can also write condition like if price greater than 20 and price lesser than 50, you can write conditions in that type of human language. Yeah, some other examples, for loops. Yeah, in the for loop, you can write in a very readable way, like for item from 1 to 50, then you just repeat all these things 50 times. Yeah, clipboard step, yeah, and so on. Okay, so all these are the main concepts. Advanced concepts, okay. So by default, TagUI doesn't lock your automation, but in some cases, you might actually want to lock it. I give an example. Let's say you work with an enterprise customer. They are letting their users use RPA, but they want to keep track what RPA their user try to do, right? So in that case, they might want to enforce every time TagUI run, you log everything and show it as a report. So maybe I share a simple example. Okay. So let's say I do a Google search. Then I type Q. Q is the attribute for the there's this ID called Q. That's why I done it many times so I know. Type Q as, let's say, RPA. Okay. Then just do something like that. So I do TagUI. Then I do a report. So you do a Google search and okay, and I think whenever I have a Zoom, right, the computer slows down a little bit. Yeah. So it does a Google search and search for RPA, and that's it. It's a very simple robot. But what happens is when you run with the report option, after you run, you have this generated report file where you can see what's the what happened and what exactly has been done, right? And when but when you run into an error, right? So I intentionally say try to type into some invalid attribute. Yeah. Okay, so you'll try to keep finding that some rubbish element, for up to the default timeout of 10 seconds, which you can change with the timeout step. Then it say cannot find. So if you cannot find, then what will happen is you'll generate a report also, and that log will include the snapshot of the error of the web page where it happened. If it's a desktop app, you'll take a whole screenshot of your desktop. Okay. And it's not just that, there will be a summary report which you can refer to later of everything that is run. So let me show you the summary report. Okay, so so this is an example of a summary report where it tracks every robot that you run with the report option. Like what is the robot that ran, what's the start time, what's the finish time, whether you run into error or is successful, where's the log file, and more recently we added the thing called user ID so that you can track across the organization different users robot runs. Yeah, so you have things like that. And in the Excel version 3, you have you can have a button to import this into Excel, and then you have your pivot table to select by which robot, by which time frame. Maybe you want to check, for the past 1 month, or let's say for the past maybe June, for the month of June, how much time in total did all the robot took? Maybe after you do your selection, you realize it took let's say total 50 hours. Then you realize, then that means the automation help you save about 50 divided by 8 is maybe around 5 to 6 main days of time. So you know how much savings that automation can create for you. So that will be in Excel version 3. Probably this weekend we will publish it. Yeah. So that's the saving report results. Then there's a handling exception and error. You can read up more in detail, but basically here it says there are 3 ways you can use them together or at one go or interchangeably. That means you can handle within a RPA robot, at different parts, you might want to have special conditions, like if condition, to handle different scenario. That's a first level. Another level would be, for the whole robot, if something happened, you want to do something. If it's fail, if it's successful, you want to do another, RPA sequence of action. Yeah, so you can do something like that easily. using the examples here. Then the third way will be globally. That means once you enable those global handling, it means that every single robot and RPA workflow that you run, it will be done that way already. For example, things that can be done include moving the files and the log file to a central shared drive, or maybe move to a folder where it's part of your OneDrive that will sync to the central storage, or maybe making API calls to post the run result to some web service. So various things that should meet the user's needs, no matter how small or how big the organization is. Things like data tables let you do batch automation easily. Object repository can let you reuse certain parameters. Like, for example, if you create 10 robots around one website, and then can you imagine if you, for each robot, right, you write down all the XPath within the robot. It means that when the website changes, you got to change all your 10 robots, right? But if you use object repository, you decouple all this UI information with your process flow. Then you use the CSV file or spreadsheet to store all these XPath definition, like something like this, or attribute definition. Then your robot just call all these object names. Yeah, in this way, you'll be able to just change that one Excel file if the website change, instead of rechanging all your 10 robots. So this will be, I would say, is a more intermediate or advanced feature, because for a normal typical user, they might not look into this as a beginner. But it's good to know that there's this option, like later on when you're comfortable, for easier maintenance and updating, this is definitely a good practice to look at. There's a modular structure where you can run a workflow within another flow. And some other examples on running Python code and logging, creating log files for debugging. Yeah, but this more advanced feature, which you rarely need to use that. Yeah. Okay. And references. So now maybe I'll just highlight a couple of references that's important to know. So type step means you type something into a web page, but you can also use a keyboard step to type something. It's just that the keyboard step try to simulate a actual keyboard press, whereas the type step is actually sending an instruction to your Chrome browser or to your Microsoft Edge browser to type into this text box. Yeah, so keyboard step would be mimic the actual user process the most and most accurately. Yeah, but the type step would be the one that is easier to use lah. Yeah. Okay, why I say that is because from type step, right, you can straight away say, hey, I want to type into the search bar, and then I want to type what value. But if you use a keyboard step, you got to first do a click to make sure your mouse and whatever is at your search bar before you can type onto it, right? So it's an additional action. But for some cases, you have to use keyboard step, because let's say you want to do keyboard shortcut like Control-C, Control-V, and in Mac is a Command-C to copy, Command-V to paste. So if you want to do all these things, right, then no choice, got to use all this keyboard step to do all this low-level control of your keyboard. Okay, mouse step. This one is fairly straightforward. Then let's say you have a web page with a table. You can use the table step to easily, save it to a CSV file. Let's say table 1 to, file name. Then you just say, hey, for this web page, I'll save the table 1 to this file. Then table 2, I'll save the table to that file. Yeah. So very easy, very straightforward. The other one that is interesting to take note of would be, it's just added a couple of days ago. It's the Telegram step. So you know, in RPA, right, you sometimes want to have notification like if your robot finished running already, or like or let's say you run halfway, your robot run into an exception, you need to take a closer look. So with the Telegram step, it's very easy to send notification. So all you need to do is you go and look up this TagUI bot account. Then when you open this account, you look up this user in your Telegram, you just click start. Then after that, what will happen is you'll reply you with your ID. ID is like a numeric ID. And with the ID, you can just TagUI say Telegram followed by ID and then your message. That's all. For example, like this, let's say your ID is 123 blah, blah blah 90. Then you can Telegram, hello, your bot has completed successfully. Then you send this message to your Telegram phone, mobile app or desktop app, or even the web.telegram.org. Okay. But this service, right, requires somebody to host the service that is possible. So I just host it on my idle VPS right now, but there's source code on the GitHub and the TagUI GitHub repo. So if you want to host it on your own server, please go ahead. You can create your own Telegram bot and you host your own source code for your Telegram bot. Then you can send a notification using your Telegram bot. So it should be quite easy to do. Just change the setting to point to your server. That's all. Yeah, if you want to host it on your own, you can read up more on how to create a Telegram bot and set up your server here. Okay. So for TagUI, there are various runs options. Just now I mentioned headless, which means you don't see the browser. And there's another one is no browser. That means you don't even launch Chrome in the back end. I think for Kwan Seng, for example, he has one project that work a lot with PDF files, right? So when you automate those PDF files, you don't even need to open browser, right? So you might as well run with no browser option rather than you open Chrome and the Chrome is there like like by major, for show like that, doesn't do anything in the browser, right? So no need for that. In some cases, you want to run in the quiet mode because you would want to show the output. Like maybe your automation has certain info that's sensitive. You don't want to show it in the output file. You don't want to show it on the screen. You can run with quiet mode. Microsoft Edge mode is also supported. And then some other helper functions. There's also even functions for data cleaning, like this one, delete characters. You have functions for data extraction. Let's say you have a Word document, you automate copying out the text already. Then you can use the get text function to specify, for example, you copy out the text string of the Word document, right? Then your data is like this, right? So you can specify get text. Then you give the left anchor and then the right anchor. Then you'll return you the thing that's in between. Yeah. So it's very easy for extracting data from a chunk of text. Yeah. So these are all the various helper function that can make it easier for you to achieve the outcome you want. And things like text helper function, right? By just using this, you can get all the text on the web page already in one line. Yeah. So it's very useful to get text for a web page to process what's on the web page easily with this helper function. Okay. So right now, if there's no questions, yeah, feel free to stop me if you guys have questions. There's this overcast. The sun is very strong today. Okay, feel free to stop me if there's any question. If not, I will just go ahead to go through the scenarios requested. Okay.
Okay, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Just now you mentioned about the get text. You mentioned that you get the text all into a variable. Is it applicable only for web page, or can you do for, let's say, from PDF file?
Both also okay.
Oh,
so get text, right? You got to provide it the text in a variable form. So if it's a web page, it could be you use the read step. It could be use a you use the text function to grab everything. And if it's a PDF file, it could be you open the PDF, you copy all the content into clipboard.
Okay, must copy clipboard first lah.
Yes,
Okay, can.
Yeah, need to copy clipboard first. Word document also the same. Need to copy the clipboard. There are Python packages that can grab data from Word document and PDF without opening them. That one also can, but that one need to write a few lines of Python code to do it lah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the other thing is I think you mentioned about headless. When you run the TagUI headless, I believe it can't do for vision, right? Those like trying to capture computer image from the screen. Can we do without the? Can we do headless?
Yeah. Your understanding is correct. So for those situations, right, where you want to provide an image to control and click on something, right? If you run headless or this cannot see, you report to this error, cannot find.
Okay, yeah, that's why I want to check whether I cannot find.
You say error cannot find.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no workaround because it's really not on your screen. So
yeah,
you really cannot find.
Okay, because I try to see whether headless can capture something that you cannot see on the screen.
No, cannot. That was supernatural already. not robotic already.
Okay. And then the third thing I want to mention is that let's say you want to click on the image on the screen. What happens if you zoom in or zoom out? And you're using the image, will we have the intelligence to say, as long as the image look the same, but whether you zoom it to 80% or 120%, you will still be able to find the let's say PNG file image.
Oh, okay, that's a good question. So if it's a small difference, right, it does have some tolerance for errors and noise lah. It's the size is a bit different, the color is a bit different, it's okay. But if the size is way too much, like double the size, sure cannot lah. So for that situation, right, one way to handle will be this one. Let me share in this one. Okay, so let me see here. I'll just paste in the group chat. Okay, maybe I add it here. Yeah. Okay, so let me add it here. Yeah, so this one later I'll do the cleaning up. So I'll just put it here first. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's say working with image sizes, adjusting image sizes automatically. Yeah. So something like this. So in your example, right, it's not just for what you mentioned. Another one would be, let's say you design certain robot and you capture all the screenshot, but then another user Windows, right, is at zoom 150%. Then another one is at zoom 100%. They sure cannot work, right? So in those cases, right, you should capture at the one at the highest resolution one first. Then you resize it here this way, like 0.5 or 0.65, for example. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
so this one must run under Vision, cannot run under TagUI directly.
Yeah, correct. It's one under Vision because it's a special setting. It's not part of the TagUI
Okay,
syntax.
Okay. So you must go to Vision to actually ask the setting to resize automatically lah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So that's that's also a Windows is still quite okay. I mean, relatively lah, because for Mac user, right, Mac has whether it's a feature or a bug, is that for Mac laptops with a Retina display, right, whenever you do screenshot, the screenshot will be at unnaturally double the size, much higher than what you see on the screen. Yeah. So for Mac users with Retina display, they need to always run this to downsize all the images they capture by 2. Yeah. Okay. If not, I'll run through the scenarios asked. Then after that, right, we'll open for any scenario you have in mind to run through. Yeah. First, you were asking about doing OCR using Schooly in TagUI. So we can break that thing into a few steps, roughly 3 steps. First step will be to open the PDF, and then before you can try to do OCR, you need to actually see on the screen. And to open the PDF, there's a few ways. One way it can be, let's say you take a screenshot of the PDF file, and then like maybe this file called sample, right? You take a screenshot, and then your screenshot is like this, right? Then you say a d-click sample.pdf. Then when you automate TagUI with this step, you will open up your PDF file. You try to click on this image and double click on it to open it up. Then you'll be able to open the PDF already. All right, that's the first way. Another way to open, right, is you use the run step. In Windows, there's this command to open files from command line. Yeah, you run steps command/c start, and then your folder name, your PDF file name. Then you also will open up your PDF. Yeah, on Mac is this one, run open. You open up. Okay. Then the other way would be you can use the keyboard step to simulate the keyboard keystroke presses to let's say search for something and open it up. Yeah. So that's for opening. Then after you open, I'm giving the example where you literally open the PDF and do OCR, because you can use Python packages to do OCR of PDF without opening also. That's also doable. Yeah. Yeah, but that one need to use different Python packages to do that. Yeah, but this one is actually really opening the PDF document and do OCR. Okay, so let's get maybe I do this step, for example. Okay, so let's say I open a file. Right, double click on your PDF icon, and then after that I straight away go to live mode so I can show you the other steps. Then in this case, I don't need a web browser, so I say no browser. Okay. So when I do something like that, right, I say double click on the PDF icon, and then the PDF icon is the sample.pdf. So what will happen is you see TagUI will control the mouse and try to double click and open the PDF. So now you run and open the PDF. You take like maybe 10 seconds, 15 seconds to load the computer vision engine. Okay. Then after open, there's a few ways to read it. One way would be you can create a PDF frame. What I mean by a PDF frame is something like this. So let's say you have a PDF viewer, you can take a screenshot of the frame, and you remove the dynamic content away from it. Yeah, so that you can find a match when you try to read. So PDF frame. Then what you do is you say read PDF frame to OCR text 1, for example. Okay, and of course you cannot hide it because you hide data cannot find it. So I just type it at the side. Okay, I don't know whether the zoom, the pop-up window will affect it or not. I don't know. Maybe it does. I don't know. I haven't tried something like that. Okay, now because now my PDF document, right, there's a zoom window of our faces, on top. Okay, anyway, let's see whether this works. Okay, so I OCR text 1. Okay, then I have all this text already in OCR. Yeah, it really does block, because at the bottom there's some more text it didn't capture. Some zoom window that block it, so it didn't capture. Okay, so that's one of the way. Second way is use XY coordinate. So let's say I'm here. I know my PDF, I need to start capture from this coordinate, right? So I can use this maybe echo mouse XY to know what position I'm in lah. Of course, you can use like some third-party apps that can tell you your XY coordinate. Maybe like that even easier, right? Then let's say I want to capture just this part, then until here. So I do another echo mouse. Now I'm in live mode. I type TagUI live. So this is what I mean. I can test things line by line interactively. So after running these two lines, I will have the XY coordinate of the where to capture. Okay, so what I do is let's say read 194, 172, 986, 427. Okay, I read this to OCR text 2. Okay. Then make sure I don't cover the screen. Okay, and run it. Then you'll read from the XY coordinate you specify. Okay, echo 2. Oh, you see the Bitcoin title, the name, and that's all. Nothing else from elsewhere. Yeah, this is also OCR. Yeah, but you know, make a note that this document is like a text document, so you actually don't need to use OCR. You can just open a file, you Control A and copy out. Then you have all the text in the clipboard already. But I'm just sharing an example. If this is a scan image, yes, no choice, got to use OCR, okay? Yeah. Then there's a third way where you can have an anchor, and based on the anchor, this one is not really, this one not a good example here, because let's say you have a document where you have a, let's say company logo here. Then you use that as an anchor to move the mouse there, right? And after you move the mouse there, you can get the XY coordinate, and then you can calculate the offset, what's the boundary to do the OCR. So that's something that can be done easily using this anchor. Yeah. And the good thing about anchor is you don't really care where the thing, the PDF viewer is. You can always anchor it to that static thing, and then you calculate the offset. Yeah. But the other ways that you can do that, don't need to use anchor will be maybe you open the PDF file, you maximize it. So the position is always at the same part of the screen and not like floating at different parts of the screen. Yeah. Then optionally, you can do some data cleaning or data extraction. Then after that, you write the data to a text file. Yeah. Okay, so maybe I just dump OCR text 1 to, sorry, I think there's somebody downstairs doing renovation. Result.text. Okay, so by doing this, right, I can save the OCR string that's extracted to the text file for archive or further processing. Okay. There's this part here on a small note to say, hey, if your PDF file is a text file, right, don't bother OCR. Straight away, just Control A, Control C. Then from keyboard, you already have it. Because when you like this, Control A, Control C, right, and you have text in your clipboard, TagUI can access that text one. In the same way, if you have certain text you want to paste to the clipboard, right, you can also use a clipboard step to paste that text in TagUI. Yeah, goes both ways. Then the other one, Guan Seng was asking was, can I pass variable to schoolie? In normal situations, right, there's no need to pass variables to schoolie and take variables back, because most of the TagUI step will handle that already. Yeah, but if let's say you have a specific use case where you need to do something special using the schoolie command, right, then yes, you will have to do something like this. And how you do it, you use a vision step to do it. And I have a session here I can demonstrate. So let's say I set a variable info tag equals ABC. Then I use a vision step and run. So when I do this, right, I'm actually forming up a string of info text equals to quotation mark ABC, then close quotation marks, correct? Then I'm sending this whole string to schoolie. Yeah. The reason why we are not sort of like creating a syntax to send this over is because whatever syntax we create, right? Let's say we use backtick, you'll mess up the actual instruction you send to schoolie if we do that. Yeah. So to make sure whatever is sent to schoolie is exactly what the user entered, this will be 100% accurate. That's why we are sticking to this for now. Yeah. But in the future, if there's a much bigger usage for sending variables, then we'll weigh the trade-off, like whether, hey, can we do the same thing with, let's say, for example, this thing, right? Instead of typing this thing, can we do as a vision, info text equals to something like that. Then when TagUI encounter the backtick, you'll know, hey, this is a variable in TagUI, we have to replace it somewhere. Yeah. So we're not doing that now. Yeah, because it will mess up the actual instruction to schoolie. So now don't have. So this is the way to send something over. If you want to send a number over, just do the same thing, but you don't encapsulate it with the double quotes like that over, right? That's it. Then, okay, so you send things over, you obviously, you probably want to get things back. So how you get things back? For example, I run this vision step. Just now I send the string ABC over, right? So now I send this instruction to schoolie to say, hey, for my variable info text, right, I want to append a DEF behind. Okay, so I append already. So that variable is in schoolie process, not in TagUI, right? Then I just saved it into a specific output file. Then in TagUI, right, we just grab from that output file that schoolie saves to, right? And then echo, then you can have the value, right? You see the variable A, B, C, D, E, F. Just now we assign is A, B, C, then in schoolie we append the D, E, F. Then we now get the result back. So you can pass info there and get info back. Yeah. So again, this is not the common usage, but if you want to do something really sophisticated that need to use a specific schoolie functions, right? Then yes, this is the way to do it. Yeah. Then okay, there's this user that asks, can I convert PDF table to Excel? So my recommendation is don't try to do it in TagUI because there are Python packages that can do this very well. So this is why I show you. It's like 2-3 lines, you can very easily convert a PDF file into Excel already very nicely. So you might as well use those Python packages. So in TagUI, you can run Python code with a py step. And if you have a block of code, you can use py begin, py finish. Yeah. So you can just install this Python package and do the Python code needed to convert the PDF to Excel file rather than try to use TagUI, open the PDF, try to do data extraction. I think, yeah, there are better things to do with your time. Yeah. So don't need to reinvent the wheel. Yeah, just use somebody's work. Came a lot to do that. Okay.
Yeah, and I think just to add on, right, if you guys are coming from a different language like C# or JavaScript or even Java itself, you find that Python today, with its ability to do data processing and just be a lot more, general use case, gives you a lot of flexibility and functionality to do things very, very easily. And usually what you will find is that TagUI is going to be very good for, a portion of your workflow, but you're going to need to want to bring in, these special Python libraries to do the specific functions that allow you to finish the workflow end to end, right? And it wouldn't really make sense if, you only use TagUI and then, you either had to spend hours and hours to like do everything in TagUI, or you went back to your, the person who commissioned your work, right? And say, okay, here's just the TagUI part. The other portions you're going to need to, fill in the blanks yourself, right? Do it manually. So for those of you all who haven't considered learning Python or haven't looked into Python libraries, I really encourage you to do so, because once you step into it, and the syntax is actually not difficult at all. If you learn C# at all, I guarantee you Python's easier. if you've learned JavaScript, you know, it's probably like the same or actually even easier as well. So that, you know, like when we go deeper and we encounter certain work process, right, that might need scraping from a PDF, or, you know, manipulation in Excel, or, you know, some other kind of processing work, you can actually do that really fast and really easily. So yeah, you know, don't discount. I just want to say, don't discount you know, the power of Python libraries to make your life a lot easier. Yeah, Ken, back to you.
Yeah, because as much as we can build into TagUI, right, you can't build the world into a tool. But Python has been around for like a very long time. Different people build different tools and make it very robust and do a lot of things. So really, yeah, it's really good to explore more in that sense, to find the easiest path to get the job done, and they meet the user's needs as well. Yeah. The only situation where you don't want to evolve Python is where, let's say, your customer that want you to do certain work, right? They will be the one that is maintaining it, updating it, and there's nobody in their company that knows Python. Yeah, in that situation, it's very tricky, because if you're a solution that implement a Python package, then you hand over to them already, they don't know what to do after you guys not in the picture anymore. That's probably the only situation not advisable. But other than that, it's really great to explore using those. And when you use a Python package, because TagUI, you can write Python code directly, right? You can straight away do all these things and call your Python package to do whatever you want. You can also copy and run all this code inside your Word document, and then you use the Microsoft Word plugin that Ruth create to run it. You know, you can do that. Or you can use the Python version of TagUI as well to do everything in Python. That's also doable. Yeah. So many ways to get to the same outcome, but there's usually one path that's shorter. Yeah. Then user are asking how to enter Excel data to website. So look at this example. So over here, I have the Excel data in this format, right? This one is for AI Singapore. They have a use case where the talents team, they need to register on the website that IMDA have to allow funding for trainees. So the trainee will apply, and then based on this Excel data, you know, this example shows how you can mass upload and register all this trainee information. Yeah. So basically, TagUI has a data table feature where you can loop through and do batch processing. So you just need to write your robot one time, and then your robot one time, right, can run your hundreds of records hundreds of times. Yeah, using the same so-called same code, same instructions. Yeah. So this will be an example. You can check more on this feature in the TagUI documentation under the advanced concepts. There's a section on data table. Then you give a very detailed example how to do and how to run it. Yeah. If you are using the Microsoft Word and Excel, no need to learn all this. There's an option where you just choose and then run. Yeah, don't have to memorize and refer to here anymore. Yeah. Okay. The other example I was share here is from Python, you know, how you work with Excel. So this is the RPA challenge website. So on this website, right, when you click start, right, you're supposed to download an Excel file, and based on the data in the Excel file, you fill up the fields, you know, at the end, you time how long your automation took. So this example here, it shows how it can be done. And because it's written in Python, I can use the pandas package to read the Excel document very easily. Yeah, but maybe in a few weeks' time, I also will add a native integration to Excel in TagUI, so that in TagUI you can have an Excel step, and then you can update that particular Excel file, particular field with certain value or read certain value. Yeah, that also will be doable in a few weeks' time. Yeah, so download the file, you know, use the pandas library to read it, and then you look through the Excel file and fill out the web page. Yeah, very straightforward. And then you say, oh, done, for example. So this will be an example. I won't go through in detail. The other one raised was a Shopee search to Telegram. Okay, so I only managed to do this quite late, so I don't know whether this worked correctly, but I could try. So let's say I go to Shopee. I still have the live session open, so I can. Oh, okay. My live session is just now without browser, so cannot. So I also maybe can use a chance to demonstrate the live step inside TagUI. So this one, maybe I name it s.tag. So I go to Shopee, then I go to live mode. Yeah, very simple, 2 lines. Okay, you can run Microsoft Edge also. So if your school, the staff computers or the customer's computer cannot use Microsoft, cannot use Google Chrome, then feel free to use Microsoft Edge. Okay. So first you go to Shopee. I don't know why today my tabs keep opening. Usually it's not like that. Anyway, okay. So now go to Shopee already. I type the search for this thing. Okay. So how I know this thing is this thing here, I install the Selectors Hub plugin for Chrome. It's a Chrome extension plugin. Then with that, right, I can just right click anything on the web page. Then I just select the hub copy XPath. That's it. Then you can reuse this thing in your TagUI workflow. So I just type this search bar as this thing. Okay, I think the one I copied just now is different. Oh, because this one changed. Okay, so I just copy this type. Okay. Scriven. This one. Okay. Then you automate typing onto that. Then I click the search button. Again, this one is using the this Selectors Hub tool. So I add update so that is later when you guys refer, you'll be correct one. So yeah, so this I paste back. Okay. So now it's search already. Then next will be again using XPath to read the URL. So the guys use case is trying to ask, hey, can I do a search on the e-commerce website and then message the link to a Telegram or whatever lah. So now this line, it will again using XPath, it will first read the value to a sublink. Okay. Then because the sublink is just a partial URL, so there's a need to form the full URL, which is shopee.sg. So in the example, I'll just say a full link equals to shopee.sg plus the sublink to combine the two string into one. Then I'll have the full link. Then this one, right? So in TagUI, right, you just need to run the Telegram step followed by your ID, then your variable. Then you'll send a message to your TagUI robot already. Okay. So now I'll show an example. So let's see. So maybe a simple example here. Okay. Okay, maybe I just type in a real URL. Let's say I go to google.com, So in case of google.com, you paste a full link here, then right, something like that. Okay. And I run TagUI t.tag. Then I open the Telegram app. Okay, so okay, so when I run TagUI, you with the Telegram step, right, you will send notification to your app. So just how I just send the link, google.com. Then over here at the Telegram, I received the message already, notification. So over here in Telegram, right, you can set a notification to maybe got sound or maybe got vibration or whatever lah, so that if you want to set notification to let you know, hey, your robot has completed, you can do that. You want to set notification to say, hey, your robot has an exception error, then if something wrong, you can go and check. Yeah, so that's the purpose of the Telegram step here. Okay, yeah, so I think I covered a little bit more than I initially planned. But I think now's a good time to open up for any specific scenario and questions. Some of them we can do a demo and try it out here. Some of them I can just answer verbally. Yeah, if it's a scenario, it's quite simple to understand. Then yeah, so just feel free to post. You can type a question too in the group chat if you prefer that, or you can unmute yourself and then you can ask it.
Hi, Ken. Patrick here.
Hello.
Hi. Just curious for TagUI, can it do regular expression?
Regular expression can, but I'm not very good at that. But can, yes, you can. Yes.
And so another question would be, is it possible to extract videos instead of just images, like from YouTube?
Extract video, okay. Something that you can do manually, right, TagUI can do. So if you can manually save the video from YouTube, right, then TagUI can also do that. You just need to tell TagUI to do the same step. Yeah.
Okay, I think maybe we can use a third party. And I know there's some online website that can do that extraction.
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
So it can pass over.
Correct. So if you have let's say a spreadsheet of video URLs, right, you can use a Excel add-in, and then you can write the robot in your Microsoft Word, and then you tell that you have to go to that website that download the video. Then you type in the video link, then those website will download the video for you.
Oh yeah, you're right. Okay, Ken, thank you.
Yeah, Ken can do that. Yeah, but directly using TagUI, you have to replicate the manual step. Very troublesome. Yeah,
sure, I understand
not so
that
good.
part. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay, maybe okay, Ken, just now you mentioned about the auto resizing using vision. Will it be auto apply to TagUI command straight away, or will the auto resizing, all these things, whatever you extract, you must also use securely to do it? For example, you want to get something. So let's say I want to get certain code, click on the, let's say the image. Okay. So when I set it in securely, can I use it in the TagUI script instead? Will it bring over this command?
Okay. The vision step to resize, right? It affects all the steps that deal with using computer vision.
Okay.
Yeah. So as long as you have a TagUI step that click on something, type on something, and you provide that image, right? What it does is you auto resize it to that factor that you give it. Let's say you should put 0.5, right? So if you put 0.5, it means it will automatically it doesn't actually change your file to be half the size, but when you provide the file as an input, it will downsize it by half and then search for an image that is half the size on the screen.
But then just now you mentioned that, let's say somebody actually zoom it to, let's say 150, some make it smaller. So how do we actually know which what value to what value to use?
Okay, that's a good question. The best way is to test lah, but before testing can make a best guess. For example, right, I'm a user, let's say I'm a user, I'm using at 150% zoom, right? Then my image capture will be very big, right?
Yes,
very high res. So when I decide to try to use the same automation on the user with 100% zoom, so what I do, right, is I set the factor to maybe 2/3. Right, because 100 over 150 ma.
Okay.
So maybe I say it's 0.67 for example. Yeah, and then test whether it works lah. Yeah.
So when we resize, we cannot use the factor anymore lah.
Resize, you can use a factor, but that has to be sort of calculated. For example, like let's say
okay.
because just now we also cover using the example on send commands to Schoolie. Okay, maybe I do this. So let's say okay, I share screen.
Can thank you.
Yeah, so let's say you have a user that's at 125% zoom, for example, right? Then you have another user is 150% zoom, okay, for example. So maybe you can calculate the factor equals to this first, yeah. And you set the factor to maybe you go okay, basically TagUI in the back end is JavaScript, so you can Google JavaScript command to set it to how many decimal place. I think this may be a very weird number. I don't know. Let me try. 125 divided by 150. Is it a weird number? Yeah. So it's 0.83. You definitely don't want to say to 0.8333, right? So maybe you do something to round it to how many decimal place. So your factor end up to become like, let's say 0.8333 for example. Yeah. Then you send the Schoolie step over. Then just now the command this way. Yeah, so you just set it to something like this. Okay, and because you are setting a parameter over, right, you use a vision step like just now we do. So we just value to this factor like that. Then you will send the value 0.8333 to over to Schoolie. Then from then on, right, for the RPA robot, you will always use a multiplication factor of that value.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
No problem. Yeah.
Hello, this is Kim here. I'm wondering if you could integrate like external Python files, like you run with TagUI, either both like locally or on the cloud. Because there's Google Colab, right? Like there's you can create like Python files on the cloud. So I was wondering if you can run your TagUI through the Google Drive, like Google Colab.
Yes. So if you're talking about external Python file, right? That means, let's say you save a Python file already, right? In TagUI, there's a run step. You can do a run step to run the Python command. So let me show you. I share screen again. So let's say in your Python file, because if you use py begin and py finish, right, end up you got to paste a big chunk of Python code, right? So maybe very troublesome. So you can use run step to run Python, and Python, and then your Python file, let's say your Colab export.py, for example. Then you can get TagUI to run Python for that Python file. Yeah, that's one way. Another way would be you do your py step also, but in Python, I assume, let's say you are using Python 3, right? Python 3 run Python file. Yeah, you can do something like this. Yeah, so you can do this to run your Colab output, for example, also in one line. Yeah, but you need to provide the path, make sure it's the right location. Then you also will run the whole Python file. Yeah, but the caveat about doing this is when you running Python this way, using the PY step, you are actually running it in a TagUI Python process. Okay. And if you are running it this way, you're actually running the Python command from command prompt. There's a small difference, but it's important enough to affect how your RPA run. Why I say that? Because if you run using this step, right, it means it's a TagUI Python process. You can send data there and back. You have access to it. But when you run your Python file with this command, right, that means I just run the command prompt. When it's done, right, the control return back to TagUI. But you don't have access to the variable there at all. Yeah. So that's the difference.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And another point, there's a small difference will be to take note will be when you run a Python step like this in TagUI, right? It doesn't mean each time you call the Python step or the PY begin, PY finish, TagUI start another Python process. It's not like it's when you run, you'll still be the same Python process in the background until your whole RPA robot finish. Yeah, that's very important, because if you set some variable and you want to be able to use it later, you need to have it working like this, and not each time you run the PY step, you run a new Python process. No, that is very bad. You can't build sophisticated stuff on top of each other. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
So can I just ask this question? When you do this, does it mean that Python will run concurrently? So that means that the next the TagUI step command will not wait for the Python to complete, right?
Okay, one second, that's a good question. All these steps, right, in TagUI are all the IT term is synchronous, all blocking process. Because in RPA, right, imagine in a business process document, you write 10 steps, you expect all the steps to be done in sequence, right?
Yeah.
Imagine you do the HR onboarding, but the 10 steps are all concurrently run. You sure fail. Because the step 2 depend on step 1 to be done correctly. And step 8, right, depend on your earlier steps to be done correctly, right? Like if you fill out a form, right, it cannot be, you fill out a form, you try to enter something into the next screen before it even appear. Yeah. Same for Python step. So when you run PY step, let's say in your TagUI, you do something, you click a button, and you click button B, right? It will only click button B after this Python one finish running. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You'll be in sequence. Yeah. I want to add that it's possible to run it in parallel, but not recommended. For example, with the run step, right? I think if I'm not mistaken, in the Windows and Linux, right, you can run a command in the background. So you just use the run step and do it that way, lor. I think in Windows is something that start something, or K or something. Then you can actually run it in the background. But that's very bad practice, because if you do that concurrently, when you run the error, it's very hard to troubleshoot, and you probably run into a lot of error due to the timing of the Python process and your actual TagUI process. So it's best to run in sequence. So just now we went through the auto adjusting image sizes. We went through the OCR example, the passing variable to schooling and back, converting to PDF, Shopee website. Yeah, so so see whether you guys got any other questions. If no, right, then maybe with some time I can cover a little bit on XPath. Yeah. Yeah, but I just see whether you guys got any other questions first.
Maybe sorry, so many questions. For Sikuli, I think you can, let's say you're doing an OCR. I think there's a function, if I'm not wrong, I haven't tried properly yet. There's a function to get the accuracy of the text that you read through OCR.
Yes.
Yeah. So can it be implemented at the using TagUI?
Right now, no, because the current design actually doesn't support that. Yeah, but let me see. Schooly API. Right now, it doesn't. Let's say, maybe I think it's a confidence, right?
I think it's
accuracy of confidence.
Yeah.
No, they match get score.
Get the score, yes.
Yeah, so this one now don't have, it doesn't return. I don't think it's impossible, but maybe I just put it in first. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I can imagine your use case like you want to do OCR, you want to know the degree of confidence, right?
Yes,
and
yes.
based on the confidence, you decide what to do next, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let me put in a new feature. The related. Okay, steps can return
the
confidence score.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Then something like this lah. Yeah.
Yes.
This one, accuracy of confidence. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'll explore this whether it's something doable. Yeah. Yeah. I can understand how it's being used lah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
No problem. Yeah. In the meantime, need to trouble you to write the custom schooling steps. Yeah. I think it should be doable. It's whether it's doable in a way that end up harder to use than using the custom vision step or not. Yeah. Yeah. If it's easier, then it should implement. If it's harder to use, then better to use the workaround. Yeah. Yeah. This one you check. Yeah. Okay. If there's no questions, then maybe I cover a little bit on XPath. Yeah. So if you Google XPath maybe search XPath, you can get it. Yeah. The first result, right? XPath tutorial W3 school is very easily accessible. It'll teach you about XPath and the details about XPath. And why I want to just spend some time to talk about XPath is increasingly, right, even enterprise apps, they are being migrated to cloud. So end up a lot of applications that people use are based on a web page. And when you learn XPath, right, of course you have things like Selectors Hub that can let you copy XPath and all this. Yes, they surely can help. But the situation where you need fine-tune control about what to do, then XPath will be very useful for those situations. So I give an example. Like just now the Shopee example, to be able to know what to provide, right, to get the URL, all this, you need to know XPath. You can't actually just right click and copy out, because you're just copying on the whole search result, and but what you want is the URL. Yeah, so XPath will be very good to learn lah. So now I'll give you a crash course on XPath. Okay, so I think maybe Google Chrome has something changed. Today only I realized that when I run an automation, right, then when I finish and run a next automation, then you somehow have still the random tab from last session. Yeah, I'll take a look at that. Okay, so let's say just now we click here already. No, we actually did click into it. Yeah, so if I right click and inspect, the syntax of XPath is actually quite straightforward. So in your, whether it's Chrome or your Safari browser, when you right click inspect, you can have this window here where you can play with different XPath. So when you use a slash, it means your immediate child. When you use double slash, it means your child and grandchildren, right? So let's say I want to search for a button. The type button, because each element on a web page can be any different type of object, right? Some is button, some can be input, some can be an image. So if I slash button means I want to see on a web page anything that's button. Then here it says 1 out of 8. It means on this web page there are 8 buttons. So then if let's say I wrap the whole XPath with a round bracket and then do it this way, I will be able to reference a different button on the web page directly this way. So in TagUI, you can do something like click button, 1, and then click button 2. And if there are 8, then you can click button 8. 7. Oh, sorry. So I got to remove the click. Yeah. So let's say I choose button 8. Then you show, that button 8 is the one at the bottom of here. Yeah. So in this way, right, let's say you have many items on the screen, by just using this way, you can specify exactly which is the item you want to work on. And let's go back to that search result, this one, inspect. So just how I covered, one is a slash and double backslash. Then the type of element, just how I give you an example, is button. The other one is a star. Star means everything. It can be a button, can be a image, can be whatever. So very often I use star to choose everything, and then I specify something more specific to match it to a certain attribute. So let's say I look at this, right? It's an image, but over here, it doesn't have any meaningful attribute here, right? All this seems like a randomly generated attribute. Here, you see something like this, right? Class mx, whatever, is more likely is randomly generated, that each time you visit will be different. So if you use this as a parameter to click on, right, your automation will sure fail one. It only work for one time. So what you need to do is you try to scope it such that you go to the parent of this element, right, until a point where you have something that doesn't look like randomly generated. So in this case, as I go up, you see, like all these are random, looks very random, looks very random, this one looks very random. Over here, this one looks okay, but there isn't anything unique that I can, refer to it. So there's a URL, but to reference the URL, I first need to know it, correct? Yeah. So, but here is different. When I reach this point, then I see, hey, this thing seems like a nicely written description. Yeah. So maybe I decide to use this, right? If I move up further, then wrong already. You see the selection becomes select everything, but no, I just want this first result. So this is what class, right? So in TagUI, it has a smart selection system where if you put class, you will be able to find it one. If you put ID attribute, you'll be able to find it. You put name, you'll be able to find it. You'll find the best match based on what is the best match for the particular input you provide. So in this case, it's class. So you can do something like /star class equals to this. Then we can refer to this object already, right? And then combine with the earlier example where I wrap it up with a round bracket and then I do a square bracket. You see, I can do a 1. Then when I do 2, it becomes the second item. When I do 3, it's the third item. 4 is the fourth item. And why this is very useful is because you actually write a for loop to look through all the result here in case you want to scrape the data. Hey, if I do a search for this, what are the results returned, right? Would it be you know, and maybe you want to save the result to somewhere, to a Excel file, CSV file, you can do that with a for loop. Yeah, then you can just look through the value here, 1, 2, 3, 4 to the total number. Then maybe you ask, hey, then how I know how many is the total number? So very easy. In TagUI, there's the count function. So maybe you say total equals to count, and then you count this XPath lah, the XPath that you want to search for, and then you count, and then you tell you how many you have. And in this case, it will give you you know, the 23 lah, because there are total 23 here. Yeah, we can try this way. Okay, so this is the XPath that I wrote. So I go back to the live mode screen. I say total equals to count. Okay. Then I show what's the value. Eh, cannot find. Did I do something wrong? Don't know why. Let me check again. Yeah, I got 23 leh. Yeah, I don't know what happened. It didn't register account. But usually this is the strategy. Like, you find something that's unique enough, and then you do a count. Then you'll be able to decide how many there are. Yeah. So maybe I try total equals to count. Total. Yeah, maybe, don't know, is it disconnected? It should be okay, right? I just got connected only. Yeah, it seems like my session got disconnected for whatever reason. Yeah, that doesn't matter. So if you use something like total equals to count, you'll be able to count the number of items. Then you use your for loop for n from 1 to total. Then you do your thing, you know, what you automate on. Okay. What else? Yeah, I think XPath, the gist would be those few things. Okay, so just now star. Then in the square bracket, right, you can do different things to mean different attribute. You know, you want to point to class attribute, you do a FSN symbol with class. You find a name attribute, you do FSN symbol name. You know, so ID. Let's say I want to reference main, then I can do something like this. ID equals to main to refer to this element. In this case, it's a whole web page. Yeah, but in any case, if you find ID like this, right, in TagUI, you probably can do it with the main identifier, because it will search the best match. Yeah. So if, let's say I go to google.com. Okay. Right, and then I inspect. So you see this input class here. This one may be randomized, maybe not very sure. But there's a attribute name called Q. So this one should be quite fixed. So the XPath you will write for this case will be // name equals to Q. Okay, that will point to the search bar, right? But in TagUI, if you do that means what I mean is, in TagUI, right, you can do things like type this thing as 1, 2, 3. Then you will go and type this value into the search bar here. But if you just do type Q as 1, 2, 3, it will work as well, because you'll find the best match, and you find that, hey, there's something on the web page with the ID or name Q, so you'll match. Yeah. So in practice, how detailed should you go? Should you give something as a generic as this, or give very specific, like something like this? You know, it's really up to you. It depends on how easy you want something to break. If you want to be notified as soon as something small changes happen, then it's better to be very specific, like something like this. You type your input, you know, title search as something. Yeah, so that when your automation run and the website has small changes and it break, you know something has changed, then you will check it. Yeah. Whereas if you type something generic like Q or type search as some value, it still can work. But if there's some change, right, the change may still let it work, but you don't know whether it's working as you intend. As you intended it to work. Yeah. So it really depends on your use case. But in general, things like name, ID, they are quite a good attribute. So it should be okay to use as using it directly here. But if you have some other things like class, then better not. It's better to match it exactly with the full XPath so that in case there's some change, you will detect it correctly. Yeah. I never tried sharing about XPath before, so I don't think I can share in the best way to people new to XPath, but I just try to share just now in the last 10 minutes what are the things to look out for. And XPath is really very useful. You spend maybe half a day, to learn it. You help you go a long way in your RPA journey, and you learn in certain situation, knowing XPath may be the only way to get something done. Yeah, so it's if you have the time, after you learn the basics of TagUI, I encourage you to try out and learn more about XPath, and not just rely on automation tools like yes, you have a selector hub, but for the example on the Shopee search just now, if you use selector hub alone, you will not be able to find what you need. Yeah, you still need to write some to understand a bit about XPath and how web page are designed to actually solve the problem and get you to the data you want. Yeah. So you can take that as an investment that will bring with it its rewards later on. Okay. I think that's about all from my side. Anyone else has anything to ask before Guan Seng, who want to wrap up?
Yeah. Anybody who would like to ask any questions? I think if not, we would like to express our thanks to Ken, giving a very insightful understanding of what TagUI can do, and many of the other features that we asked for, and we are actually looking forward to use what he have taught us to use in our project, right? Okay. So we are very thankful. Of course, not only Ken, I think their team, including like John and Ruth, I think package out the whole thing for us. So can we just give our expression of thanks to Ken and the staff from AI Singapore. So spending 2 hours to go through all the things that I think will be very helpful in our journey towards